Section 3, agenda approval. And I know if you were here last week, it was a pretty long meeting, so there's a lot on the agenda to look it over. I'd like to entertain a motion to approve the November 13th agenda. Oh, that's right. Sorry, November 20th agenda. I was thinking last week. Robert?
So moved.
Is there a second? JD, second? Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes. All right, now we'll move to last week's agenda. We'll move to section 4, approval of the minutes from November 13th, 2013.
Motion to approve.
Is there a second? Miles, second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes. We'll move on to reports. I guess I'll start with this one. I don't have much to report. I do have a couple questions for the. Can I do that now? Communications. Okay. Let's do it right now. This could also fall under communications, but I'll go ahead and do it now. I was approached by a fellow BOD member to ask the students on this board a few questions. They wanted us to contact our different entities. And since I'm chair of SNA, we're going to talk to the students on the board regarding the Faculty Development Day and your guys' feelings on that. Because that's going to be brought to Faculty Senate by the Vice President for Academic Affairs. So did you guys appreciate Faculty Development Day? Was it helpful? I guess we'll just go around. So, if you know, you all know what it is, right? That one Wednesday we got off, that was completely random.
And there is, just to clarify, there is no dead day
There is no dead day, exactly.
that took the place of that.
So,
Ashley?
Sure.
And then Rob.
while I appreciate faculty development and I think it's important, it was not helpful to a student to have one day off in the middle of the quarter. I would much, much rather have a day off, like study day, before finals week, when there's a lot of difficult work to do.
Rob?
I agree with everything she said.
All right. JD.
I think that having it during the week is in the middle of the quarter has definitely its pros and cons. I'm more for it during the middle of the week. I'm in the middle of the quarter, excuse me. I also think that it could be moved to somewhere like before Thanksgiving break isn't like the best because then you're only going to have class one day, but it also would be for the students for traveling. There could be other uses for it because as a student myself, I know I did not use that Wednesday to study. I used that Wednesday to sleep in. So I definitely didn't use that day to study. Where I would have used it more, if I had an extra day to travel, it would have been more beneficial to me, or it also been for personal reasons, but then it would also be more beneficial as a dead day.
So if it was on a different day, you would utilize it more?
Yes.
Okay.
Especially in the middle of the week.
Okay. And you'd like to see it more at the end of the quarter, actually?
I would prefer end of the quarter.
You liked it in the middle of the quarter, JD?
No, I don't like in the middle.
No, you didn't? Okay. I know you weren't supposed to, but does your instructor schedule a class on that day? Some people did. Did you have class, Robert, on that day?
No, I didn't, but I'm taking a science class right now for a environment, but one of the issues that we ran into is they do labs on Wednesdays.
Yeah.
And so I've heard from different people that labs were canceled, which if you only have lab once a week, what do you do it? So they were forced to make it up elsewhere. But then they ended up, because the grad students were running the labs, they ended up getting together and doing it anyways. But then I also heard from another student, because we were talking about this, what the day that this day fell on, they had to do their lab, because if not, you could never get the data or something. I don't know why. I mean, it's not class, so I couldn't explain why exactly, but it had to happen that day. So it was just kind of interesting to hear how the sciences were affected by this day.
Yeah, I know a lot of sciences and ROTC programs had class. So, Ashley.
I had a class.
Did you? Okay. What class was it? If you don't mind me asking.
Political science 485.
Yeah. Poli-sci too. Actually, a lot of poli-sci classes still happen. Do you have something to say, JD?
I was just going to add on to that ROTC thing. I had two classes on Wednesday. One that was normally happened, and then an additional one that was on Wednesday because we didn't have that time.
Okay. Anything else, guys? All right, thank you. So just bring these concerns to Kelsey Miller, Vice President of Academic Affairs. She asked me to do that before. I have nothing else to report. Do the advisors have anything to report?
I have a small thing.
Okay.
So on Tuesday, I attended the Budget and Finance Committee meeting. So the items for PRSA, Family Studies, and the Wellington suit were approved to move forward. So we should be getting the final approval in the next couple of days, and then my office will notify those folks of how they access the funds and all the requirements associated with it.
I can report.
Okay. Seeing no more reports, I'll move on to subsection 6, public comment. Is there any public comment at this time?
One of the items, just for the fact from the committee, I sent an email just confirming your service, and if you are in need of any more documentation for your service agreement, please feel free to contact me. I, again, will help document whatever you need for your service. I appreciate your work. And then, Sharon, do we want to mention the other thing?
Oh, I was going to do the record.
Okay, all right. So thank you.
Any further public comment at this time? Ashley?
I'd like to speak as a student and not necessarily as a member of SNA, but I'm part of a committee right now which is organizing an interactive event raising awareness about world hunger called the Oxfam Hunger Banquet. And it's taking place on Wednesday, December 4th, which is the first Wednesday after we come back from Thanksgiving break. And I encourage all of you to look into it and participate. It's free for students and $5 for non-student. And it's a really fun, interactive event that will really challenge your perceptions of hunger in the world.
Where's this at?
In the Sioux Dining Room.
And where would one buy tickets?
You can buy them at the Wildcat Shop or online
And what time is it at?
at 7 p.m.
Perfect. Right after this.
right after this.
Yep.
If you are a non-student and you can choose to bring a small bag of non-perishables, in lieu of the $5 ticket, we just ask that you RSVP to me, actually. And you can find information on posters around campus.
And students can bring non-perishables as well.
They can, but the tickets are free for students.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Any further comment at this time? Seeing none, move on to section 7, supplemental funding requests.
Okay, and this is what Richard just was referring to. I wanted to give a little bit of information up front before you hear this request because our forms don't 100% match this request. I'm not saying that the request is still a valid request. It's a little bit of a mingling amount. So as I spoke with the presenter, we went back and forth. Do we have them fill out base funding? Do we have them fill out supplemental funding? So I didn't want people to get confused because what the request is a larger amount up front and then some smaller subsequent funds for a couple year period, which makes it sound like base funding. The problem with base funding is a flat amount each year, the same year, and he wasn't looking for that. He's needing a larger amount up front, and he doesn't need that same amount each time. So the committee can listen to the request, and they have the option of funding it how they want, or asking him to fill out a base funding request for the subsequent years, or look at it as a whole. But I just wanted people to understand that it wasn't that he didn't try to fill out the right forms. Our forms just aren't necessarily adequate for this particular request.
Got it?
Yeah.
Okay. So at this time, I'd like to bring up supplemental funding request number 1404 for RAD Women's Basic Physical Defense Program. Jason, you have the floor.
Do you want the PowerPoint or your request first?
PowerPoint, please. And sorry for the confusion on the forms, I truly, I have no clue on this.
You're not?
Yes, well, we had an idea and we're like, let's do this, and I have no clue. I've now been helped. Do you have the clicker? Or?
Oh.
That's all right. So I'm going to start out with just a real quick slide of the introduction. I hate even putting this in there because it's not me. I mean, it's not, that is me, but it's not me to go out there and say this is what I've done. The only reason I have this slide in there is to show you that we as a police department, have buy-in on the program that we're going to talk to you about. This is what, and we've been doing it for 10 years. So,
They changed this view because they can't see you online.
okay.
You would just ask me.
Okay. So when we talk about RAD, what is RAD? RAD is it's a women's self-defense course. It's a women's only course that was founded in 1989. The course that we teach here, or that we're certified to teach, it has grown to be the largest defense network of its kind in the United States and internationally. It starts, it's designed specifically for women, and there's over 11,000 instructors at this time in this certification that we teach. It's the only program that offers a free lifetime return and practice policy. What that means is that anybody who goes through our courses, any of the students who go through our courses, they have the book with them. When they take that book, they can go to wherever they live. It doesn't matter, wherever, Seattle, Spokane, whatever. If there's a RAD program there that's going on, they can walk in with their book, say, hey, I took RAD, I'm in for free. So, which is significant because in some places they charge, quite a bit of money. Private companies teaching it charge quite a bit of money to take the course itself. It's the only program that's ever endorsed by IACLEA, which is the International Association of College Law Enforcement Administrators. Why is that important? Well, it's important because they are one of the most liability conscious organizations there is. So for them to endorse this, it takes a lot. It takes a lot of showing what the program's about, running the program, having all your proper forms, your proper training, all of your instructors and everything that goes with it. And it also meets all of the guidelines for the National Coalition Against Sexual Assault. So that's our goal is to stop sexual assault. So good. So RAD is a 9 to 12 hour course, and say 9 to 12 hour course because you can teach this course without a component which is called simulation. And in the budget, when you see the amount, she's talking about the large amount. The large amount for upfront is basically the equipment portion of it. The equipment's expensive to buy, but it's only one type to buy. It's also the majority of the equipment that's purchased on there, of the upfront cost that we have, will last 8 years, 9 years, with being constantly repaired. And we have repair kits, we repair stuff all the time. The course has to be 12 hours if you offer that simulation component, and I'm sure the couple of students that I have in the presentation will come up and talk about the simulation portion of the course, which is, it's pretty fun. In the video we'll show you. We start out the course with instruction and prevention and risk reduction strategies with realistic, dynamic, hands-on physical training. What that means is this course is front-loaded with education. We talk about sexual assault. We talk about definitions. What's the definition of rape? What's the definition of sodomy? We talk about risk reduction strategies. If you're going to go out to a party, how do you do it safely? What to do? Because we don't sit up there and say, don't go to parties, don't go drink, go do this, because, well, we all know that it happens. So we give them strategies on how to be safe when they choose to do those type of events. We teach realistic techniques using their personal weapons. We don't teach anything in here with a weapon. This course firmly believes that your weapons are your personal weapons. So whatever you get into the shower with, that's your personal weapon. There are courses within the systems that expand out to be pepper spray and keychain and that kind of stuff. But teaching pepper spray in Ellensburg with our prevailing environment being wind, if you don't train with it and you don't know what the effects are, we say no weapons. So we train specifically with weapons. We teach the women how to strike. We teach them how to use the power of the hips. I mean, just like a baseball player, a golfer, power comes from the hips, and we teach the women how to generate that power. The instructional objective is to develop and enhance the options of self-defense so they may become viable considerations to the woman who is attacked. Really, what does that mean? Well, it means that we are going to give them tools in their toolbox. And it's something for them to rely on. Studies have shown that if somebody who has never been through any sort of self-defense training, what happens to them when they get into a scenario or a confrontation? They freeze, right? Because they don't have anything to back it up with. So with this course, with the front loading of the education component backed with the simulation, gives them the real hands-on portion. Talk about real quick about simulation. Simulation is an event where, I think this is the next slide coming up the video, where we get into the equipment that's purchased, the suits. The students get into their suits, and we basically put them through choreographed scenarios. Now the scenarios, I say choreographed because we tell them, we want you to walk from this, it's a normal Sunday afternoon, we want you to walk from this point to that door out there, and you can't do anything until they touch you. Well, realistically, you're not going to be walking down and guys in big suits are going to come after you. So we have to make it a little bit of choreographed stuff. So this video here is going to show you is I videotaped one of our previous students who's now an instructor, an alumni of Central, just to show, because I didn't want to, it's hard to explain when you see something on paper of how much it costs, especially equipment and whatnot. I wanted you guys to see what the equipment looks like, what the suits that they're wearing, what the student suit is wearing, and she goes through basically, this is one of the scenarios that she goes through and that we teach. Yeah, go ahead. She's at an ATM machine at this point, is what the scenario is. So within that scenario, as you can tell, that the knee strikes and the kicks are pretty much the most common things. That's why the suits that are on there have a lot of protection in those specific areas that they're going to be targeted a lot. So that's what we use those for. So within this, we have two students who just went through the RAD course, and they'd like to talk about it.
Hello everyone, my name is Ann Phillips and I'm a senior here at Central. Like you just said, I just finished taking the RAD course and I feel very strongly when I tell you that it was the most valuable course I've taken here at Central. And the unfortunate part about this course is that I've been trying desperately to get into it ever since I was a first year student, but every quarter by the time my enrollment date rolls around, it's full. And I think that's a real shame because this is something that I believe first year students should really have the opportunity to be involved in if they'd like to be, because they, like he said, should be adding tools to their tool belt if they ever get in a situation like this so that they can defend themselves. He mentioned the simulation that you just saw, and I'm someone who's never been in a fight, never had to defend myself in any situation, and I was really nervous when I got up in the suit and was going to go through simulation, and I almost didn't do it because I was just so nervous. And it was the most empowering experience I've probably ever had, knowing that I can get out of a dangerous situation if it's presented to myself, and I would never have gotten that confidence if it hadn't been for this course. So I know it will seem like a lot of money, but if you just think of it as an investment for the safety for the girls on our campus, that's something you can't put a price tag on. So thank you.
Hey guys. My name is Taryn. I'm a senior at Central, and I just finished the RAD course, just like Ann did. And honestly, one of the best classes I've ever chosen to take. And I didn't really plan to take it, but at the time I had some free time, and I was like, why not? You know, when self-defense could come in handy. I am so glad I did, because there are so many situations where I'm walking home at night and it's 5 o'clock in the dark like this, and it just makes me feel safer. I feel more confident when I'm walking. I feel like if I get attacked, I know what to use and I know how to go about protecting myself. So with the simulation, that was terrifying, let me just say, because we didn't know what we were going into. But afterwards, you felt amazing because you knew that if someone ever tried to hurt you, you were going to be able to protect yourself. So it's really worthwhile, and I agree with Ann when I say that all freshman girls should take this class.
It's coming up to 10 minutes, so at this time I'd like to entertain a motion to extend discussion for another 10 minutes. Miles, so moved?
Yes.
Is there a second?
Second.
Robert, second. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes.
Okay, so the proposal, thank you for that. The proposal, it starts with this. The CW Police RAD cadre, in collaboration with the Wellness Center, Aspen, we locate 10 students or staff, and we certify them in this program. there are some requirements that people need to meet to be certified in this program. So males, if they're in law enforcement or military, can automatically qualify for this. If they're not in military or law enforcement, they have to jump through some hoops, meaning they have to be interviewed by me, they have to be interviewed by the headquarters of the program to make sure that they're in it for the right reasons. Because we don't want to admit somebody into the program who may not be in it for the right reasons. Those students and staff in turn teach the basic course to students in the CERC twice a quarter. We've already talked about Florida, about hosting it inside the CERC, and or using Nicholson Room 205 upstairs in the CERC would be a great spot too. The CW Police Department will provide the manager for the program and will insist in simulation. So the guys that are in the suits that you see in the suits will continue to be in the suits. Simulation is where liability grows. It's the worst. It's the biggest part because you can't control I mean, you can to a point, but you can't. So the people who are trained in simulation will be conducting the simulation, and that's the police department will come in and do that. As students graduate, we'll identify the new RAD instructors and get them certified to teach the program. So we're looking to continue this program, to keep this program going. The course will expand to CW centers as the program gets up and running. We have had our first discussion with the CW centers 2 weeks ago, referencing self-defense. We have sent an officer over there, and they had I think it was like a symposium or something. We worked with the student leadership group over there, and they came over there and they taught. We spoke about self-defense and what they could do. And then they really want to have the RAD class over there. So with this proposal, we'll look to expand the RAD class over there. Thus, in the budget, you see that there's a cargo trailer in the budget. Yes, the cargo trailer is to hook up to our Explorer that we have at the police department and take it to the centers and teach the course. And then I put this in there because, again, I'm sorry, I didn't know how it works and all this as far as the funding. But if we have to, we'll come back as far as the base funding for the future. If we need to, or whatever we have to do to continue this program, we will move forward in that manner. So the benefits. This will create a one-of-a-kind program. Students teaching students skills that will last in their lifetime. There's no other program in the United States that is this program right now. We'll have more self-defense courses taught for the people who don't have the chance. We have a wait list for the class every single quarter. Every single quarter is a wait list for this class. So I like to say it because we're us teaching it, but I think it's the course itself. With the skills taught in this course, we're making the students less likely to become a victim. It's true. We have no idea what the statistics. We can't provide stats of how much we've helped people, but we can tell you that we've taught 20 classes already on campus, and who knows out of those 400 women what we may have prevented. We just don't know. Anyways, we're going to provide empowerment for our students through the education, dependency on themselves. We're going to have them make their own decision-making responsibility, and the self-realization of physical power. A lot of people have never been into a fight, such as what you saw there, right? So once they get into that, they realize that yes, they can fight through it. Not a problem. Yeah, it further builds the bond between the police department and the students. It's a collaboration. And it takes the current course beyond the classroom to reach more students. We want to get it out of the classroom environment, get it out here and expand it to our students. So the request, the 3-year program, after the 3 years, we'll evaluate and we come back to the SNA committee, is really what we're looking for. And I'm looking for, as far as the request, you see that the budgetary request, we're willing to do whatever the SNA committee wants us to do. I've already put in there that, every year I'll come back and give a report to the SNA committee of how the money's being spent, where it went, how many students we've taught, where we're at in the process as far as instructors and everything else. Attached to the paperwork should be the budget request. And then, again, not knowing how much base funding is, because I know that it's front-loaded up front with the cost because of the equipment and the certifications and everything, and that lasts for years. And so if you look at the budget, it goes down to, I think, 6,000 or something like that the second year, and then down to 4,000 or 4,900, whatever it is. We really tried to, within this, we really tried to make sure that we didn't have anything in there that's over and above, that's craziness. As far as extra trinket kind of stuff to do the project. Yeah, go ahead. So when we talk about the budget, when we talk about the certifications, The certification for the 10 instructors is $1,000 right up front. So it's $100 basically for the books. The police department's going to cover the rest, which would be $7,000 over the 3 years. These are the 3 years. These are adds up to the 3 years cost here. Year 1 to 3 down there with the bottom. I have the top the totals. We talk about recertification fees. We talk about aggressors and the aggressor instructor shirts. With this program, it's a very professional program that's taught, and there are certain uniform requirements that are mandated by the organization that you wear, so that you are projecting a professional image. So we have these shirts and the simulation equipment package, which that is that those suits that you guys saw that the guys were wearing, those big black suits. It's 2 of those, and then it's 6 student gear. So you could have 6 students wearing the gear. The student gear, well, for the year 1. Then we go down to the aggressor suits. There's 2 more of those because it takes 4 aggressors to do a class of 20. Because if you're doing 3 scenarios with the women, it gets very tiring, and it gets very, you need breaks after being hit numerous times. Then we go down to the equipment bags, which needs to hold the equipment that we have. The impact targets and shields. These targets and shields, what those are is what we use during practice. So when we teach a technique, we make them, we demonstrate it, we explain it, we do repetition, then we do dynamic impact on our bags, what those are. So we have pads out there that we hold, and they do the techniques into the pad. So they do the techniques into the pad because that's gaining more of the knowledge of how to do stuff. They're training it, they're training their minds. Then it's all polished in the simulation, where they use all the techniques that they're taught. When we go down to printing costs, supplies, the cargo trailer, again, the cargo trailer is on there because we want to take this to the centers. We want to get out there. We know that it's requested and it's wanted, so we're heading there. That's our vision, where we want to go. So we get down to the yearly total. The first one is $20,000. Then it goes down to $6,900 the second year. Reason being is because we don't need to buy all the equipment that we had. We do need to pay for recertification fees. I built in some certification money to certify new students each year 2 and 3. But we don't know what the attrition rate would be, so that may be less or more. May have to adjust within that budget time there. The recertification fees, we adjust the second year. We have student gear because our thought is that the class is going to get more popular. As it becomes more popular, we're going to have more students. More students on the simulation, we need to have more gear for the students for that night. So that's why we built it into the second year. And then again for the bags, the whole day gear that was purchased previous. Printing costs, supplies, all that stuff kind of goes up a little bit because we expect more students, more information is going out there, more costs for doing that. And then we get down to our yearly totals and it goes down each time. We talk about the police department. The yearly totals of what the police department is saying that, you know what, we're going to absorb these costs. This is what we're paying. We have $7,000 that we'll absorb for the instructors and certifying. That's the fees that we'll absorb at the police department for that. We'll also absorb the simulation assistants. Our guys get paid to do simulation. It's just because it's a union contractual thing that they're doing it. So we will absorb that over time for those guys to do the simulation, which helps take away the cost of this program. The instructor time for the certification. This is what it costs for roughly costs for the instructors to certify the students, not just the fee, but the cost of the instructor. That'll be absorbed. The video equipment will be absorbed because you have to have a videotape recorder to videotape this. So that'll be absorbed. And then the program manager, because we believe that it's going to be, especially right up front, and continuing with this to make sure that we are documenting everything and we got the students on board, we're getting everything set up inside stuff. It's roughly about a 5% deal. For over 3 years, $11,520. So the I don't know if it's the right term, the match of the police department is roughly $32,040 is what as the police department is willing to commit into the program. Questions? Sorry, I went.
Sure.
Would you clarify to the committee, but I'm not entirely sure it's totally clear to them,
Yes.
the conversations we had,
Sure.
that this is not a RAD academic class, but it's expanding it into a program to reach further students.
Correct.
These funds would not be used to teach the academic.
Correct. We have equipment to teach the academic class, and we are keeping that completely separate. And because they want it, it's the same thing with them. They don't want the academic equipment being used elsewhere. So this equipment is specifically used outside of the academic world. It will not be used in the academic class. This is, again, we're taking it to the centers to teach it over at the centers to the students over there. as outside of the classroom, not as a credit class. It is taught as a credit class here, but it won't be. Yes, sir.
So the students are registered for the class, there's a waiting list for the class?
For
the
the
RADs?
yes, sir. Yes.
Is that, so do they, when you say they register for it, apparently they register online for it?
It's
Through
an actually
Safari?
it's a PE credit class.
It's a PE credit, okay. How many credits? One?
1 credit.
And do you get any money from the university since you're generating credit hours with that?
I wish.
Is there a fee? Is there a fee associated with them?
We've been teaching it for 7 years as a credit class. They have purchased equipment for us to use in the class, but as the police department, we think it's a duty.
Sharon?
I think though that we're mixing up two things.
Yeah.
Yes, there is a credit class for RAD that they teach with other equipment. This is not associated with the credit class. This is taking and establishing a program outside of the academic side so that additional students can be.
Well, it's a credit that the students, they don't pay for that?
They're
It's not part of their tuition, that one credit?
if they're taking the academic class, yes.
This is not
For this
academic.
new program, this is not the academic class that they.
I understand that. Or is there one credit associated with the RAD signing up
Yes.
for it? The kid gets one credit on their transcripts for this,
For that class.
But
not
not for
this.
this,
but not this.
correct.
Two separate.
It's a new program.
It's like one of those classes that they're having a survey every week, right?
Yeah, I'm just saying, my point is, if they were getting some kind of academic credit, they're paying tuition, it seems like we should expect somebody, PE or somebody to.
He said they weren't
help fund it.
receiving it though.
But the new program is not receiving, how are they registered for it then if it's not receiving credit?
For this class,
Yeah,
so we're going to run registration through the CERC information at the, what do I call
The
it?
info desk.
Info desk.
Yeah.
When you walk into the workout facility, that desk right there.
Oh, the
Now
rec
you
center.
said-
The rec center
The rec
desk.
center desk.
Yes.
and now, so how many students you think you'll serve with this?
My goal is to serve 40 a quarter,
Right now, how many are you doing?
20.
20. So you'll
So
double.
40 additional. So we're already teaching, we're going to keep the PE class. That's going to keep going separate. The reason we want to expand this program.
So that'll be, so you're, in other words, you have a waiting list every quarter, you're gonna take care of that supply and demand here.
Yes.
And I also just want to point out that one thing that you said that really struck me is that you have 4 years here, do it as a freshman, I think that's good advice. It's a pretty safe environment as far as the Ellensburg, but it's a lifetime skill they're learning.
Todd, is there a question associated with this? It's
Yes, I
a
just want to
question.
say that's to me a very valuable thing as far as this investment
Sure.
for student activities. I would support that just with that knowledge alone.
We can discuss that next week. Is there a question?
No, that's it.
Okay. Ashley and then JD.
Maybe I missed this, but will there be any type of student fee associated with registering for this program?
Yes, and we put down, initially, I think we put down in the budget $600 for revenue based on the first year. Here's the thing with the student fees, and I would love to sit down with somebody in a group and talk about this from students themselves, because I really don't know what to charge. I do know that you need to charge a fee for a program, because then it hooks the people and makes them come there. If we hold open registration for free, we'll get 200 people to sign up and 3 to show up. So, yes, there is a fee, and yes, down the road, there will be the opportunity once it gets going with the students, once they get comfortable teaching the students, to expand it into the faculty and staff realm, and to have that tiered pricing, so that just like the hunger thing, students pay $10, faculty staff are 30. Whatever that tiered pricing is, and I would love to sit down with the group and discuss that, because I'm totally open for that.
But, okay, great, thank you. Currently, it's at $600 a quarter? Or $600 for the course, or is that what you said?
No, revenue would be 600.
Oh, revenue
They want,
would be
if you want to do
Yes.
it for the year,
Yeah.
And you're looking for-
We were calculating it based off of, once it's up and running and they're charging for the course and stuff, that there's a hope of $600 to $800 a year. that would go back into this budget to help support this budget, would not go to the police department budget.
JD, did you have a question?
Yeah, so you said that it was 9 to 12 hours. Is that like single block instruction? So they'll go on Saturday from like 8 a.m. to 8.
The great thing about this program is that we could set it up how the students want. We could set it up we've taught it half a day Friday, all day Saturday. We've taught it all day Saturday, all day Sunday, or half day Sunday. Currently it's being taught in 3-hour blocks. So it is 5 to 7:50 every Thursday, but only the first 5 Thursdays of the quarter. If that isn't confusing at times. But, so it's the 15 hours, so it meets the credit hours and goes from there. So currently that's the way it's being taught. The way to be taught here would be in a similar fashion. My vision would be a Tuesday, Thursday, or a Wednesday, Thursday, something like that. Have 2 classes going at the same time so that it makes it easy for scheduling, and make it a 5 to 7:50 or a, what. Again, I would love to sit down when it gets to that with a group of students and say what works best for you. Because when I was a student, it's totally different.
Derek and then John.
So I have 2 questions related to this. This program is essentially the same as the academic class, but with an added component?
This course is being taught would be the exact same as what the academic class is. Not using anything academic, so there's no 2 separate.
Right.
The curriculum that we teach is a set curriculum, and as long as we teach from that curriculum, we're covered liability-wise, and that's what we're trained to teach. So the curriculum of the course stays exactly the same as what the other courses are. So that way, again, it goes back to the lifetime return practice. They can go anywhere, and it's the same curriculum anywhere they go.
My second question is, wouldn't this potentially bleed people away from the academic course? Because at least in principle, you're paying $250 a quarter for it to take it. Obviously that depends on whether or not you're full-time or whatever, and you're within the 18 credits, but perfectly 10 and 18. But you're paying, you're required to go a specific day. Wouldn't this be more attractive to people because it's essentially, cheaper?
Well, yes and no. And I say yes possibly if somebody's looking at it that way. No, meaning because people need PE credits.
Okay.
And not all people like to take weightlifting, basketball, or any of that to get the PE credit. And this is what they want to go to.
John and then Ashley.
It sounds like a wonderful and important program, and I fully support it. But my question is, I know that the police department has many important programs that benefit students, many different kinds of equipment. To the best of my knowledge, the police department has not previously relied upon or looked to the SNA committee to help fund those programs and equipment. So what distinguishes this very worthwhile, very important endeavor from those other activities?
That's a great question. We don't have the money to make the program go. And we don't have the manpower. That's the problem. Is we have 10 instructors certified to teach this course, and with the rotating shifts that the police department works, it's really difficult to make sure that we have 3 instructors there at every point in time. So to expand the program, we've got to look elsewhere. And, the reason that we're coming is because we've never wanted to expand the program before. Now we want to expand it. Well, how do we do that? We need to get more instructors. And so we were thinking, why don't we offer to the students?
And John, just historical knowledge, I just talked with Sharon. Police Services actually has came to SNA before for the CAT team. So they have came for previous
Which is another
projects.
Another big program.
So just a little historical knowledge there. Ashley?
Yes.
In your budget, you mentioned certification of 10 instructors. Is it feasible to consider teaching the course with fewer
Yes.
certified instructors?
Yeah, it is. And the reason I say 10 is because my thought is this: it takes at least 3 instructors to teach a course. If we're having 2 classes going on at the same time that we're teaching, trying to do 2 courses per quarter, or however it goes, however they want to schedule that, I'm trying not to rely too much on the same group because they're not getting paid. It's a voluntary. They're doing it because they want to make a better life. So I came up with that number because I was thinking 2 teams of 5 is really what I was thinking of. Because if you need 3 people and you have 5 to pull from, you're more the chances of getting those 3 people to teach than if you lower those numbers. But you can, yes, you absolutely could.
So we're at our 10-minute mark for question and answers. Does the board have any further questions? None? Okay. Thank you, Jason. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
This will be on the agenda for December 4th.
December 4th. We don't
Okay.
meet next Wednesday.
Okay, that's great. Great, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. All right. So I'd like to move on to section 8, old business. Subsection A, report from PRSSA. You guys have the floor.
All right, so my name is Alex Homer, and I'm the CW PRSSA president this year. And
I'm Shannon Lowry, member.
And this year, we both had the privilege of going to the PRSSA National Conference. And it was in Philadelphia, as I'm sure most of you that were here heard before. And we just wanted to come back and say thank you for your approval on that. And we're glad that we got the final approval from budgeting, if I heard correctly. And so we just wanted to touch on a few things that we personally got from the experience and how we decided to bring those back for the members. Personally, I met with one of the speakers who spoke on personal branding, which is a big thing in the public relations industry, and had him come back to our chapter and touch on that, as well as social media and public relations planning. So he spoke via Skype from New York this past Monday, and the rest of our chapter, which is about 25 people, were able to take in that knowledge, take notes, ask him questions. He also gave us his email, and so we're allowed to follow up with anything they might have had that they didn't get the chance to ask. Also, we talked to a bunch of different professionals from the Seattle area at a networking event with our PRSA chapter, which is the professionals in Seattle, and are able to make connections with them for jobs, internships, and other things that we can bring back for not only the people who went, but the people back in the chapter.
And personally, what I gained from it is that I could relate to my other PRSSA members' sources for getting PR jobs and any kind of information that they may need, like presenting skills and just certain things like that, social media skills, just brought all of that back to the table for them. Really important. And I'd like to thank you as well. It means a lot to me.
Does the board have any questions? No questions? All right, cool. Thank you for coming back.
thank you.
We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Awesome. All right. We'll move on to subsection B, report from Family and Consumer Sciences.
Hello, everybody. Just wanted to come back again because I missed you all so much. So I'm here representing the Family Studies Graduate and Undergraduate Club, and we just wanted to express our sincere appreciation for SNA funding the majority of our trip to the National Council on Family Relations Conference. We were able to take 6 undergrads and 6 graduate students who spent 4 full days listening to research and networking. The students were able to meet top researchers in the field, which was really important to us because it got us really excited about reading research, doing our own research. I know, speaking for myself personally, just on my first day back to class, I was reading a lit review and I saw 2 names of people that I met at the conference, which is really cool. I feel like they're celebrities. So we also were able to meet people who were interested in our open faculty position in the Family Studies department, which was really neat because we were able to kind of present CW as, you know, a great place, a great destination for these people and win them over. CW was also noticed by graduate schools across the country, and in a few cases they were actually competing for our students, which is really neat to see because here at Central we don't get a whole lot of attention. We're a smaller university. One requirement that we wanted to mention upon return for each of our attendees was that they had to present in front of a class that has all of our majors and talk about what they personally got from the conference and kind of reasons you may want to attend in the future. And we also created an NCFR board where we posted summaries. Each student that went posted a summary and some pictures from the trip, which I have seen people crowding around often, so that's exciting. And then aside from how we brought it back to our club and to our students in the department, we also brought it back to the community by attending sessions that were related to our internships in this community. So for me personally, I work at a nonprofit where I work on a housing program, and I attended a session called Pros and Cons of the Future of Housing Assistance and the Impacts on Low-Income Families, which I was really excited to meet back with my boss and bring in my notes, and he was really proud to see that I was working on my work away from the office. So yeah, again, we just really wanted to thank you for continuing to support Family Studies Club and this conference.
Does the board have any questions? Ashley?
Oh, I would just like to say I love all the post-conference things that you did, presenting to classes, a posting board full of information and pictures. I think all of those things are things that we appreciate knowing are happening, that it goes beyond just the travel. And good job. Thank you.
You guys have done a great job. Thank you.
Thank you guys.
Yeah, that's great to hear. We'll move on to subsection C, Burgundy update. Let's recognize Andy.
Thanks for having me back. I wanted to come back for two reasons. One, to inform you where we are in this process and in the discussion. And then two, to ask permission for something. So, the first part is the update is I met with the rugby teams right after I had that meeting with you guys and got all their questions and concerns, which they had a lot of questions, like what would that look like, what would happen, and so gathered that information. We all sat back in the room with the president and with Dennis from athletics, our athletic director. We all sat down and said, okay, so how would we even make this work, and what are the comments and questions? So we talked through it all, and the primary one here was the student input, right? How would the student input happen if they were to move into the varsity realm? And they figured that most of those kind of the issues that are important to them, as far as having a say on the coaching staff, having a say on the direction of the team and whatnot, could be done through team captains, which already exists in the varsity structure, and through the advisory council, the Student Athletic Advisory Council, which advises all of athletics as well. So there's a lot of momentum behind this right now. I just want to inform you guys that there's a lot of interest. Everybody in the room thinks it's a great idea. Like when we're sitting at the table, thinks it's a great idea to move forward. All the students are, the teams. I've asked them to kind of, keep it down a little bit, because if we do this, we want to coordinate with the university and have a big rollout, because this would be a huge thing for rugby, as far as nationally, probably internationally, since our team is really the future of rugby. It's pretty amazing. So the students are very much excited about it. There were some questions around, equality between men's and women's, right? Like, how would that look like? And so we said, well, everything would be equal straight across, as far as whatever resources that would happen on the men's side would happen on the women's side, same amount of players, same amount of tuition waivers, etc. So now we're in the process of saying, okay, so how can we actually make this work? So what does it look like? And we started pulling together a budget, handing it off to the president, saying, hey, this is the money that you would need to fund, right? Which, so he's got George Clark sweating a little bit, looking for money, right? So that process is happening. Dennis from athletics is looking at his program, because in effect he'd be adding about 30% as far as student athletes to his program. So we're talking about athletic training and strength training. So what are the resources behind that? How would he make that work? And the infrastructure, just as far as supporting these two teams. From our side, it's really, this is where it comes into the question that I need to ask, is I would like to have permission to still use, they've already been approved through the quadrennium, through sports clubs. I would like your permission to use that money continuing through the rest of this quadrennium, so that to support their national travel. And that way it would take that big number that the president has to find and lower it just a little, not much, but it would give them time to kind of build up, so then that way it would be the transition. So this is money that's already allocated. It's approximately $33,000 a year is between the two teams. So we would, and the way how that would work is we would just move it into a fund that they may be charged, which
In total, not for
33 total per year. Yeah, it's both teams. So, and that, whether I can offer that on the table will help dictate the timeline. So if I cannot put that on the table, it may extend the timeline of the transition. If I can put that on the table, if you allow me to, then it can shorten the timeline and we can move them to varsity faster.
Derek.
So the question I ask is, so basically we're talking about maybe kind of sharing them over to athletics for as we go. Just to,
So, well, what we're discussing is say, okay, how do we actually physically take them and put them in athletics so that they're supported through their infrastructure, but we still fund their travel.
right.
So it would really, we'd just be a bank, I guess.
And is that the extent of the funding?
Yeah.
Just the travel? Okay.
And just at the current levels that we're supporting right now.
And is that equitably distributed?
It will be. So
Okay.
right now, it's been on a success rate. So it's been, well, there's been a few factors on that matrix of how that funding is. They've come for requests in the past, but then also there's a matching fund pool, and it depends on, let's see, we have like financial responsibility, participation in the club governance process, and then team performance. So that's how it's been distributed, but that will just equal split.
Is it safe to say that the bulk of the travel money has been spent on the men, as it were?
Yes.
Okay, so it would be a cut for them to.
It would be, but the women would have to be supported at the same level anyway, so it would still be the same amount of support that the president has to find.
Sure. Yeah.
Joey, and then JD, and then Ashley.
I know it's still early in the conversations, but you're saying the potential timetables for whether or not the funding is progressed. Do you have an idea of what those timetables would look like getting a full-time athletics?
I can't commit to anything because we're just discussing and figuring out what issues, hurdles to jump. But I think if I could put this on the table, I think it could happen this year. Like as far as academic.
And I'm sorry, JD, Ashley was first, so Ashley and JD.
I'd like to yield to Richard.
So the athletes that are rugby students, would they actually then become, like our athletes, for example, they're students. So in essence, are you then saying that this money now funds academic course? Is that what's, because like football, for example, football's athletes are enrolled as a class for football and those types of things. So SNA funding, the challenge is, again, funding academic programs is not an actual course, isn't, if it's a part of a course. That was the problem with the previous presentation. I think he kept using the word class and course when he needs to use the word program and not class or course. So the concern is this now is there going to be some differentiation of that? Because then there's some question in the RCWs of, so my question would this be funding a course or is it a program? And I think that there's some question about the legality of the SNA funding if that's not delineated more clearly.
Okay, that's good. In my impression, I'd have to look into this, but we were only going to fund the travel, which is different than the course, isn't it? I believe.
So that's kind of like we do with the marching bands and the other things too.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
So it'd be only travel costs is the only thing. We just shift it from us to them.
Thank you.
JD.
My question kind of goes off Derek's question. So, let's say for the rest of fundraising, the same budget for travel is going on. Up until the rugby team becomes actually officially varsity sport, will that money continue to be used the way it has been used, as based on team performance, and then once it becomes a team sport, it'll be split down the middle?
Yes.
So, assuming that it happened this year and they travel next week, for example, just saying.
Right. Okay. Then the president would have to make up the difference for the men's team, which he's excited about doing. Yeah, so it's just a matter of finding it.
You can.
So,
Sharon?
So just one thing, just so the SNA committee is aware, because this question had been brought up, and so I just want to make sure everybody hears the answer, is there's an RCW out there, 28U15045, that talks about the funds and how they're managed. And once the allocation and stuff and the budget has been set, the RCW prevents it from being shifted, those funds, from other budgets. unless there is an exception, they would need to come back to the SMAP committee, which they're doing. Similarly to, for the few of you that were here last year when the centers wanted to merge and we needed to move those funds that were allocated to the individual centers into a newly formed joint center, it did require the SMAP committee's approval or support to move those funds. So for them to do anything with these funds, if they're going over to athletics, we would have to set up a different PID for them to go to. But it would take this committee's approval of what is the net dollar value of funds that you're approving to move.
Ashley?
In the interest of supporting decisions of previous boards, as well as preventing a sudden financial crisis in 4 years when the funding has disappeared that we approved, I move to support the continued funding for rugby at $33,000 this year with a 10% taper each year over the next 4 years.
Does everyone understand that? Is there a second? Miles, second. Any discussion? Jake?
Can we ask a question during this time?
Yeah, of course.
Would that 10% taper each year, would that have a large impact on the program throughout the next?
And, we'll probably sit down and create the model, because I know we're talking about initial startup costs, because right now, all the coaches are volunteer. That's going to be a big hit for the president, right, to find that kind of, to find salary money for the coaches, because 4 coaches we're talking about. But there's the initial startup cost of everything, and then especially for the women's, there needs to be a lot more investment into it to build them up to where it's equitable, to the men's. So we could probably build a model based on it. Whatever you guys decide. I'll take that and put it on the table. I'm not going to put anything on the table that is not decided by this group. And also, just a side note, I didn't come up with this idea. I took it from you guys at the last meeting. That's really where I took it from. So if that's what people decided, I could take it and say, hey, how about this? And then we just have to figure out how to make it work on the administrative end.
Point of information, I just did the numbers real quick. So if we did the funding for $33,000 this year, 10% decrease next year would be $29.7 thousand. Further 10% would be $27.2 thousand, and then the 4th year would be $24.5 thousand. So that's going to roughly save a lot of money for the committee also, but it's not going to completely cut the funding that they need supporting Derek.
A question for Ashley. So the reason why you're saying this is because you want to make it clear to the administration that this is not going to continue? Or at least it's not going to continue unless somebody says it's going to continue? Because I know the administration doesn't know that.
Yes, my reasoning behind it was twofold, both that and it's easy to forget that money is coming from somewhere else, especially if it's been happening for 4 years, and come the 5th year, suddenly they have a $33,000 hole in their budget that they had forgotten to allocate from other places.
Yeah.
This will make them conscientious over time.
I don't know if it's a shot at administration rather than really a transition period.
Sure.
Yes.
No, exactly. But I was thinking,
Smooth
actually,
transition.
what about,
Yeah.
well, what if, because I understand what you're saying, which is they're going to have to make up the difference more every year until ostensibly they're making up the whole amount. So why not just make it 25% taper?
Per year.
That way at the very end there is no more money. So, and hopefully they'll have replaced all this out.
Can I comment on that? I will say that depending on the strategy that happens will determine when this transition happens, whether it's this year, next year, or the following year, right? So if it's more dramatic, I can see that this timeline being pushed out a little more. So just keeping that in mind.
Point of parliamentary procedure, there's a motion on the table
There
that
is,
really
yeah.
talks about the 10%, so if there's something else about a
It'd be a
different
friendly
percentage,
amendment.
that
Yeah.
should be at a different
Well, I think it
conversation.
should be amended.
Oh, an amendment?
Yeah.
Is that an
So-
amendment?
so the question is-
I think it was just a question.
Right, but I'm saying that the questions even parliamentary need to address the
Yeah, the
specific
question
motion.
Okay.
There is a second, there's a motion and a second on the table.
JD?
What is the total cost that the president has to look for?
Right now, we still are estimating that because there's a gap in athletic training and in strength training, but it's up in the hundreds of thousands right now. So looking at.
Any further discussion? All right, all in favor? The motion was, 1 second, make sure I get it right. To currently support rugby travel for $33,000 this year with a 10% taper per year for the next 4 years.
Can I clarify something?
Yes.
And that would be coming out of what we've allocated to the sport club budget for travel.
Correct.
It's not additional funds coming out of something.
So, all in favor of the motion on the table? Any opposed? Any abstentions? It's a tie, so.
It's you.
I'm in favor. Motion passes 5 to 2.
Great, thank you. I'll come and report back when we have the details figured out.
All right, cool. Thank you, Andy.
Thank you.
All right. So we'll move on to new business. Currently, we do not have any new business. So, Rich, you have business?
Yeah, new
Oh,
business, thank you.
okay. We're not. Okay.
Whenever I was on the public comment earlier, I asked Sharon, but I wanted to give an update about a request that we had received for funding. And it was a student request to fund a student internship trip to Ecuador. And the trip is for credit. And because the RCW doesn't allow SNA to fund that, we denied that student the ability to even come and present. Our practice has been that we typically don't deny anyone. We want them to feel comfortable of coming to this board, and then you telling them no. But I thought that not only it's misleading to the student to come and present and they'll never be considered. So we shared with them no, but I needed to share that with you because if you wanted them to come and present and then tell them no yourselves, then this is your body and your money. So just as the representative of the Dean of Students Office and since this committee reports to the Dean, I made that decision, but it's really your say. So if you advise me to go ahead and let her come forward with her request, I will. But again, she was requesting to fund her internship, which is for credit, and that again is against the RCWs.
Does the board have any comment? Personally, I think that's the way to go. It sets a dangerous precedent. There's 10,200 students in Central. If we had 10,200 requests for that, that would be dangerous. So, Derek?
If it hadn't been for credit, could we have looked at it?
You could, absolutely. And again, the question is the slippery slope. I spoke with the dean, and she had advised if the student were to be allowed, that she asked that I would share that it is not in her support. She would not recommend this to you all to support because of the slippery slope of it all.
Yeah. John?
That all makes good sense, Richard, but Sharon, can you just clarify for me and maybe to the rest of the committee, what distinguishes the matter we just heard from, for example, the newspaper, where SNA provides funding to the newspaper, some students are taking newspaper-related courses for credit. How are those distinct?
Yes, and it's actually those examples such as that and theater arts and marching band are actually in the AG's opinion. Because we're not paying for the academic course, we're paying for them to take what they learned in the academic course and apply it beyond the classroom to create a product or to practice what they've learned.
Sure. Thank you.
Any further discussion? All right, thanks, Rich. So, we'll move on to section 11, public comments, second call. Rich?
So, for public call, I just thought of this as Andy just left, but and again, I apologize if my brain doesn't think the right way. I'm worried about the motion that was made if that was not just advisory, if if it does choose to merge, or if that is an automatic. And was that clear enough in the motion, and is it going to be clear enough in our records to show that? Because what I don't want to have happen is if they go the different direction and rugby doesn't go into the athletic realm, I don't want you to defund them now. And so I just want to make sure that the motion was clear, and that's what you all wanted, because I think I could have been confused when I look in the minutes at that motion. Does that make sense? Because y'all were giving him an advisory. You were giving him an advisory, but the way the motion was that we're going to fund them this year at $33,000 and reduce it at 10% for the next 3 years. But there wasn't any stipulation that is if they go to athletics or not. So the motion would already start to defund them even if they don't. And that's the way I interpreted it. And again, I could have misinterpreted, but I don't want there to be any confusion if that's what y'all's intention was or not. So I wanted to throw that out there as a public comment that my brain says that I think what you all technically just did was you started defunding them after this year.
I was under the impression that he was asking if he could continue the same level of funding, if he could count on that if they went varsity.
But our
That
motion-
was the question.
He's right. Our motion was only, we didn't put that stipulation in our motion though. So we just said we're going to
So we
defund.
just need to clarify.
And that's what I would recommend that you do, just for to make it as clean as possible. And it's the same recommendation that I say when you all consider the police presentation, that you all should use the word program and not the word course or class, because if any minutes show that, then we could have some problems with our funding and the state rules. So I just throw that out there as public comment.
All right, Ashley?
So with that in mind, I'd like to move to amend the previous motion to include a stipulation that it will only go into effect should varsity rugby be moved, or should rugby be moved into varsity athletics.
Okay, is there a second? Miles, second. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, motion passes.
Thank you, Rich.
And thank you for letting me be the public comment.
All right, I accidentally, oh, sorry.
Not about that, but remember the form that we worked on and made for evaluating? When will we be using those? Are those ready to go, or?
I had planned on bringing them next week.
Okay.
Not realizing that anything was going to be voted on, but you're correct. I should have brought them this week in case somebody wanted to make notes while the presentation was
Okay.
going.
I just wasn't sure where we were. I couldn't remember.
No, it's ready.
It's ready to go.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Okay, any further public comment, JD?
I have one thing. I just had to point out Josh Mutar in the back corner. He just recently applied to be on this committee and he's waiting an appointment. So if you could say hi to him, hopefully he'll be joining us soon.
Hi, Josh. I got your application during our public meeting last night for BOD, right as I passed over committee appointments.
Yeah, that's
It's like sent my email. Literally, I yielded. I took my email and it was in there. I was like, so we'll appoint him next week. Any further public comment? None. All right, I accidentally skipped over communications received. So, do we have any communications this time? None? Okay.
Maybe I need to start sending communications too.
Everybody looked at Rich.
Public comment?
All right. Before I move into adjournment, I'd like to remind the board that question and answer time is question and answer time, no personal bias in there. So, just a heads up. With that said, I'd like to.
In the form of a question.
Yeah, that'll be for next week.
Well, just as a point, we're not meeting next Wednesday.
I mean,
due to
2
the
weeks.
holiday, we'll be meeting, the next one will be 2 weeks from today on December 6th.
That's my birthday, so.
We'll finish up next Wednesday.
That's the last one for the quarter.
That is the last one for the quarter. Yes. You guys enjoy your Thanksgiving? At this time, I'd like to entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
Is there a second? I'm gonna go JD second on this one. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes. Meeting adjourns at 6:54 p.m. I know. I'm just gonna grab this.